Finding a foundation shade online is a very tough task. You wanna match your undertone, you wanna match your skin tone, you wanna match your overtone. There are a lot of tasks and a lot of boxes to tick. Due to the pandemic, we all are left with no other option than buying our foundations online, and buying a foundation shade online is a total task. So without wasting any time, let's get into the video. Let's talk about the first category people, the people who have never ever bought a foundation, or people who have bought a foundation but the foundation they bought didn't match them. So basically you don't have any other foundation shades to take reference while you're going for a foundation, because 1, you don't have a foundation, 2, you have a foundation which doesn't suit you, so you're going to start fresh. To be honest, this is the most toughest part, because if you find one foundation which matches you perfectly, you're done with the game of finding your perfect foundation shade. Because if you have one foundation which matches you perfectly, we can take that shade as a reference and you can easily find other shades in other brands as well. The first and the most easiest way of finding your foundation shade online, like your first ever foundation shade online, is using a foundation shade finder app. We have this software on Nykaa app where we choose our skin tone, we choose our foundation formula, but unfortunately we don't have the option of choosing the finish. 3 foundation finishes: 1 matte foundation, 2 natural or satin kind of foundation, 3 dewy foundations. Generally, people who have oily skin tend to gravitate more towards foundations which are matte. People who have combination to normal skin type generally gravitate towards natural or satin foundations. People who have extremely dry skin or dry skin generally tend to gravitate towards dewy foundation. But there is no specific rule that you need to use a matte foundation if you have oily skin. You can definitely use a natural finish, or you can definitely use a dewy finish foundation even if you have oily skin. It's your personal preference. I personally have normal to dry skin and I like matte foundations sometimes, because matte foundations tend to last on our face for a very long time, and it's really easy to use matte foundations by mixing up with some highlighter, and we can easily make them dewy. So yeah, you might get a little bit confused because there are a ton of foundation shade recommendations over there. So I prefer you to ask the customer care service of Nykaa. They do a very good job in finding your perfect shade foundations. I tried the customer care service 2 to 3 times and they have matched my foundation shades 99% correctly. They ask everything you need in your foundation and they pick foundation according to your skin preferences and your personal preferences as well. If you are a beginner or if you haven't tried any other foundations before, I would definitely suggest you to go with the customer care service of Nykaa. They do a very great job. So this is one way of choosing your foundation if you are a beginner and you haven't tried any other foundation shades, and the other way is going to a store directly and swatching your foundations on your jawline to neck. We are done with the first category people. Now let's dive into the second category people who have a ton of foundations and they want to buy another foundation in another brand. We all are guilty of buying too many foundations. I know that. I have never emptied at least one foundation. I don't know. I have never emptied one foundation and I still get gravitated towards new foundation launches. It's insane. So you have a foundation and it matches you perfectly and you want to buy a foundation in other brand. The easiest way and the most practical way is using foundation.com app. Most of the time I use this app, and all the foundations I buy from US or UK, I use this app. They give a bunch of recommendations which might suit you and you have to choose the one you are looking for. You get a bunch of recommendations which are similar to your skin tone and you can choose whatever you want. And most of the time they work very well. If you still have a little bit of doubt like how the shade is going to look outside, you can simply Google the shade and you get a ton of swatches of the actual shade. So if you feel the actual shade is also very similar to your skin tone, you can go with it, you can go further with it. The second way of choosing your foundation online is actually choosing an influencer who have similar skin tone to yours. For example, I have a very similar skin tone to Coralista, also called as Ankita. We both use almost the same shades when it comes to base makeup, so whenever she uses a foundation, I just note that number, and in future I use that number as a reference. So let me tell you a trick here. You want to find an influencer who uses the similar foundation shade like you. Go to YouTube, go to the search bar and type the foundation name and foundation shade and just search for it. You get a bunch of video recommendations because the person in that video is actually wearing that foundation. Most of the time people mention their foundation shade in the description box, so if you type the foundation name and foundation shade, you get a bunch of videos who mention the foundation shade in the description box. So YouTube algorithm works that way, so you get people or you get the influencers who are using that foundation shade. If you find a person who looks very similar to your skin tone and she is using the same exact foundation shade as yours and the foundation shade actually matches her perfectly, just go with their foundation shades even for the other foundation. Most of the time this algorithm is a hit. It's not only for foundations, you can go with concealers, you can go with correctors, you can also go with translucent powders, compact powders, bronzers, etc. in the same algorithm as well. So always find an influencer who have similar skin tone to yours and you're good to go. If you have a MAC store available or you travel to some place where a MAC store is available, just go to the MAC store and ask the people who work there to match your foundation, and most of the time they match your foundations pretty well. So please try to know your foundation shade in MAC. My foundation shade in MAC is NC37 to NC40, depends on the season. In summers I'm in the shade NC40 and in winters or in monsoons I will be in the shade NC37. So most of the time I use NC37 as my foundation. In this video I'm not going to talk about undertones, overtones, formula, etc, because it will be a very long video if I dive into that subject. That is a very in-depth subject. This video is totally for beginners, so I'm not going to include too complicated subjects in this video. If you drop your suggestions and if you drop your messages in the comment box below, I would plan my future videos according to your suggestions, so it would be very helpful to me. I hope you found this video helpful. If you do, please subscribe to my channel and like this video. If you are not following me on Instagram already, I would leave a link in the description box. Please follow me on Instagram as well. See you in my next video. Until then, bye.
Don't wanna be, ooh, big.